Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lasok b'divrei Torah. Blessed are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who sanctifies us with his commandments and commands us to engross ourselves in words of Torah. So again, I'd like to thank Leonard for sharing his heart for prisoners, and I just thank God for them, because like I said, God does not lay that on everyone's heart to do that sort of stuff. Okay, so in the second reading of the book of Genesis is named after Noah. In Hebrew, the name Noah is spelled Noach, and the word Noach is related to the Hebrew word for rest. And Genesis 5:29 says that his parents named him Noach because they hoped that their son would give them rest. You know, having a nice son that could take care of them in their old age, that's a good thing to have. The contents of the section of Noah tells of Noah's flood, the Tower of Babel, and the beginning of the Abrahamic line. You'll see that the last couple of chapters of this parsha is just a genealogy. You know, this one begat that one, and that one begat that one, and this one begat the other one, and you go, okay. And especially if you don't know the names and you don't know how they're related. But it's fascinating that you look at some of these names and how long these gentlemen lived. Moses' grandfather, he knew Adam. Adam was still alive. Can you imagine that? Wow. The Bible's description of the world of Noah could be taken right out of the home page of any one of the major news outlets. You know, I think we got one here that's from the Oregon Live. I could have taken one out of CNN or Epic Times or Newsmax or so any one of these, but. Genesis 6:5 says that, and Adonai saw that the wickedness of humankind was great on the earth, and that every inclination of the thoughts of their heart was only evil all the time. Only evil all the time. Now, a review of headlines just this week. I went through them and just read through a few things, and it told of sex trafficking, child neglect, a man beaten for being a Republican in a so-called Democrat neighborhood. Yesterday, I think it was, or the day before, the husband of the Speaker of the House of Representatives, someone broke into his house and beat him almost to death with a hammer. And so, and I hope Paul Pelosi makes a full recovery. But I read about school boards pushing immoral agendas on kindergarten and grade school children. Drive-by shooting, murder, and mayhem in Chicago. Oh, you know the drill. There's just all sorts of these things that happen in our world. That's just a small sample of it. So, but do any of you ever get disturbed over that anymore? Or have we just been so bombarded with this garbage that we've sort of become immune to it in many ways? You know, God help us. We need to get resensitized to what is going around us. You know, God did back in Noah. He looked in Noah's day. You know, he looked around. He was so angry. He got so sensitized to it. He got angry, and he regretted even creating mankind. He says, "And while I'm at it, I'm going to destroy all the animals too." You know, everything that I created in this little bitty world, where he reduced himself just a little bit so that he could create our world and our universe. He says, on that, I'm just going to kill them all. And he was very angry. So God never changes. So if he was angry with that, what do you think he's feeling today? I mean, really and truly, the things that we see in our world today are so horrific that eventually God may have to repent, and he may have to apologize to Sodom and Gomorrah. You know, it's just, that's how evil. Now, there's an ancient Jewish text known as Midrash Yelamdenu, and okay, this is the nerdy part. Okay, you can go to sleep if you want to. The Midrash is in 2 parts and is a commentary on God's words to Noah. In Genesis 8:15 and 16, then God spoke to Noah and said, "Come out of the ark, you and your wife, your sons and your sons' wives with you." Then this Midrash goes on to say, Noah said to himself, since I only entered the ark with the permission of God, from God, shall I leave without permission? The Holy One, blessed be he, said to him, are you looking for permission? In that case, I give you permission. Then God said to Noah, come out of the ark. Okay, kind of like Yeshua saying, Lazarus, come forth. The Midrash then adds this. Said Rabbi Judah bar Ilai, if I had been there, I would have smashed down the doors of the ark and taken myself out of it. Sounds kind of rash, doesn't it? One of the most imminent Jewish scholars of our time, Rabbi Dr. Nachum Rabinovich, drew this moral conclusion. He said, when it comes to rebuilding a shattered world, you do not have to wait for permission. God gives us permission. He expects us to go ahead. Leonard and Karen deal in a shattered world, a broken world, every time they go through those prison doors. But you know what? We deal with a shattered and broken world every time we leave our home. Every time you go to the mall, every time you go to a ball game, you see a shattered and broken world. Just go to Buc-ee's someplace and just look at all the people. I mean, Buc-ee's is a great place for people watching. You know, you can be entertained all day long just watching the people. And it's something. It's a broken world. Now, this was, of course, rebuilding a shattered world is part of an ancient tradition, ancient Jewish tradition called Tikkun. And it's mentioned by Rashi in his commentary to Genesis 6:9. And it's central to the sages' understanding of why God began the Jewish people not with Noah, but with Abraham. Have you ever thought about that? Noah, says the Torah, walked with God. Enoch walked with God. Adam walked with God, okay? But God said to Abraham, you walk on ahead of me. Genesis 17:1. So the point is not new, but the drama and the power of the Midrash is stunning. The difference between Noah, if you didn't catch it, the difference between Noah and Abraham defines them, defines their personality. Both Noah and Abraham were righteous men, no question about that. But Noah was basically a follower. He did what God told him to do. He was given specific instructions to what he was supposed to do for the next 120 years. He was supposed to build an ark, and you build it this long and this wide and this tall and these many decks and all of those different things. Every specification was there. You could almost lay out, in fact, the dimensions that God gave to Noah are very similar to the barges that ply the Mississippi River, not particularly in size, but in scale. That's the word I was looking for. In scale, and they are very seaworthy in a river and so forth. Then you have offshore barges. Now the offshore barges are even more like the barges that the ark that God told Noah to build. Now, it was very specific. His was a life of obedience, not innovation. With Abraham, however, God gave Abraham no specifics. He said, he just told him, okay, Abe, get up and get going. Where am I going? I'll tell you, just get going. I'll show you the way. They had no direction, no specifics, just go. So Abraham saddled up his camels and he set out. Now that's faith. You know, it's like somebody comes and says, hey, Steve, let's go on a road trip. Sure, where are we going? I'm not going to tell you, you know. I got one of those calls one time, and from a boss, and he says, hey, pack a bag. And I says, where am I going? He said, can't tell you. It's not a classified, it's not a secure line. Okay, tropical or Arctic? And he said, tropical. Okay, how long will I be gone? I don't know. Depends if you come back. And so I said, okay, when do I leave? And he says, I'll be there in 20 minutes. And then I found my way, headed off to war. That's the way, that's a conflict. And we invaded a country that night, and there I was. So it was just one of those kind of things, you know, you just go, not even know where you're going. Told my wife, says, well, I'm leaving. I don't know where I'm going. I'll see you when I get back. And so then she turned on the TV and saw what we were doing. She knew where I was. So it turned out okay. I didn't get ventilated or anything, you know, so it was great. Okay, so anyway, God gave Abraham just nothing. Just gave him nothing. He just said, go. So now this is really a significant part of what faith is in Judaism, in Messianic Judaism especially, to have the courage to pioneer, to do something new, to take the road less traveled. And I like taking roads less traveled. Pat's always after me, why are we going this way? Well, I've never been on this road before. I do that. I just love to do that. You know, and when we lived in a foreign country and I was in intelligence work, you know, she said, how did you know this road? I said, I try all of these different roads in case I have to evade or, you know, whatever. And it worked to my advantage several times. I like going on new roads, to venture out into the unknown. Now, this is what Abraham and Sarah had done when they left their land, their home, their father's house. It is what the Israelites did in the days that of Moses when they journeyed forth from Egypt into the wilderness. They were only guided. Of course, they were guided. You know, they weren't just wandering aimlessly. God was guiding them aimlessly into the desert, seemingly. He had a pillar of cloud by day and a fire by night. So faith is precisely the courage to take a risk, knowing that though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Take that verse. That's in Psalms 23. Of course, you knew that already because everybody knows Psalms 23. Take that verse and change it a little bit. Instead of saying, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, put your own name in there. Personalize it. Though Steve Sheik walks through the valley of the shadow of death, Steve is not going to fear evil because you are with me, Steve. Kind of makes it a little bit different, doesn't it? Personalizes it a little bit. Now, it took faith to challenge the religions of the ancient world, especially when they were embodied with the greatest empires of their times, you know, the Greeks, the Romans, and so forth. It took faith to stay Jewish in the Hellenistic world, when staying Jewish meant you would be killed in all likelihood. Jews in Judaism must have seemed small and parochial when it's set up against the big cosmopolitan culture of ancient Greece and the Alexandrian Empire, and certainly the Romans. In the modern age, though, even though many of Jewry's most distinguished minds either lost or abandoned their faith, that's just a fact, nonetheless, that ancient blessing of the Jewish people has survived. How else are we to understand the phenomenon that a tiny minority of in Europe and the United States was able to produce so many shapers of the modern mind, each of them a pioneer in their own way. Einstein, you've all heard of him, that's in physics. Durkheim, maybe you heard of him or not, in sociology. Levi Strauss, besides genes, he was into anthropology. Mahler and Schoenberg in music. Gustav Mahler was a great composer. And a whole string of innovative economists. Jews comprise only about 1.5% of the world's population. And yet, they have been awarded over 21% of the Nobel Prizes. God's chosen people are kicking that door of the ark down. You know, they're just kicking it away. In many cases, which, you know, sometimes it's the fate of innovators, the people concerned had to face a barrage of criticism, disdain, opposition, or disregard. Now, you have to be prepared to be lonely at best and misunderstood at worst, vilified and defamed if you're going to be an innovator. As Einstein said, if my theory of relativity is proved successful, Germany will claim me as a German, and France will declare me a citizen of the world. But should my theory prove untrue, France will say that I'm a German, and Germany will declare that I'm a Jew. Sound familiar? Yeah. To be a pioneer, as Jews know from our history, you have to be prepared to spend a long time in the wilderness. All the disciples of Yeshua showed incredible courage in facing the forces of evil known as the Roman Empire. All but one went to a martyr's death. Only John the Beloved lived to be an old man. They scattered out all over the world. I have met people from India who can trace their roots of belief in Yeshua to Thomas. Certain part of India, I mean, just everybody there was converted by Thomas. Dietrich Bonhoeffer went to a gruesome death because he resisted the policies of the Nazi Party. You've heard me talk about him. He was quite a great man. Corrie ten Boom, you may have heard of Corrie ten Boom. She saw her family starve to death and endured the horrors of a Nazi concentration camp because she and her family had the courage to hide Jewish people and help them escape the Nazi Party and the certain death. So when it comes to rebuilding a fractured, a shattered world or a broken dream, you don't have to wait for permission from heaven. Heaven is telling you already, go ahead and do it. Now, that's not carte blanche that you can do whatever you like and say, well, I'm rebuilding the kingdom. No, it doesn't work that way. Not all innovation is constructive. Now, some can be very destructive indeed. You know, this is the principle, but this principle, though, of walk on ahead, the idea that the Creator wants us, each one of us, His greatest creation, to be creative. He expects us to be creative. And that's what makes, I think, Messianic Judaism so unique in the high value it places on the human person and the human condition. We all need to place a high value on that person that's sitting right next to you. You know, you are important. Each one of you is important. You're important to me. You should be important to each other. Faith is a creative and a courageous expression of worship. Faith is the courage to take a risk for the sake of the Messiah, Yeshua. To begin a journey to a distant destination knowing that there will be hazards along the way, sure. But knowing that also that God is with us, giving us strength if we align our will with us. Faith is not certainty, but the courage to live with uncertainty. You know, I don't know everything that's going to happen to me. Probably it's a good thing, because if I did, I'd have a heart attack, you know? Goodness sake. If I'd known some of the things that happened to me beforehand, I might have had a little bit different change of life, and if my wife had known all the things that would have happened to her, she might not have wanted to be my wife. Goodness sake. Something that was read this morning in our Haftarah reading, though, something that I like to read it over and over again because it gives me encouragement. Behold, I created the smith who blows the fires of coal and produces a weapon for its work. I created the destroyer to ruin. No weapon formed against you will prosper, and you will condemn every tongue that rises against you in judgment. This is the heritage of Adonai's servants. Their vindication is from me. We rely on the Lord. It may, the writer of Hebrews defines faith as the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen. And I believe that faith requires breaking down those doors of your comfort zones. We're all boxed in a comfort zone. We like our little comfort, and for Americans, our comfort zones are very, very tiny. If you live in foreign countries, that your personal space is, we like wide open personal space, but in foreign countries, boy, that personal space is pretty small. You ride a jeepney in the Philippines, and you got to be real friendly there, right? Right, Glenn? You know about that. And if you ride the Shinkansen in Tokyo, oh my goodness, they push you into that train. That's that real fast train. They push you into that thing, and then they've got guys that actually push you in there, and so they can close the doors. Now it's just a different world. And Americans are just not comfortable with that at all. But we have to get out of our comfort zone. Maybe it means volunteering to help Leonard and Karen in prison ministry. Bake a few cookies. That's not out of your comfort zone, but you may feel led sometime to, volunteer to go with them and to help. Perhaps it's taking the courage to go to your local school board and let them know that you strongly disagree with the woke direction that they have taken. Courage can take many paths. It could possibly mean something in as simple as going to the polls, not this coming Tuesday, but Tuesday week, and voting for the right candidates regardless of who your parents voted for all their lives, okay? You know what I'm talking about? And regardless of who you normally vote for, you can look around you and see that Harris County is a mess. Those of you that live in Harris County, I don't live in Harris County, but it's a mess. All 12 judges are all from one party. The county judge is from that same party. And so I'm just saying, take care and make sure you go vote. Courage means taking a stand for what's right and wrong, regardless of what is politically correct. All right? It's okay to be politically incorrect. In fact, it's probably good to be politically incorrect. Courage means telling that wrong number on your telephone about the good news of Yeshua. That has happened at our house, wrong number. Well, and then next thing you know, 30 minutes later, Pat's still talking to this person about Messianic Judaism and about Yeshua and this and that. I says, who was that? He says, I don't know. They called about selling me insurance, and so, we had a good conversation because I was telling them the insurance that I have, and that's in Yeshua. So it doesn't matter how crazy this world gets. Just remember that I can do all things through Messiah who strengthens me. In the end, Yeshua is all the courage we need to knock down the door and leave the ark. Could we stand?